For 40 years, the U.S.-led global economy has produced an enormous improvement in human welfare. Since 1981, the proportion of the world's population living in extreme poverty on less than $1.90 per day has fallen from 42% to 10%. But in countries with advanced economies, inequality of income and wealth has surged. And nowhere has it surged more than in the U.S., where reliance on free market forces has been strongest. That magnifies rewards for those at the top and leaves most others behind. The trend helps those with higher levels of education and hurts the less educated. It lifts residents of major cities while leaving those in small towns behind. For growing numbers of Americans, it's just harder to get ahead. Why has this happened, and what are the consequences?
Wealth inequality in America isn't just a statistic. It's a narrative that touches the lives of millions. We're diving deep into a topic that's been making headlines and shaping political debates across America. So, let's delve into what wealth inequality looks like in the United States and how it continues to be a significant issue. Imagine a high-stakes Monopoly game where only a few players amass all the wealth while the rest struggle for crumbs. That's wealth inequality in the United States, and it's a big deal because it restricts economic opportunities, gives too much power to a few, erodes social cohesion, worsens health disparities, stifles innovation, strains public services, and impedes social mobility. In a nutshell, it has far-reaching consequences that affect everyone's well-being and the health of democracy itself. Let's take a closer look at wealth distribution in the United States in the first quarter of 2023. Surprisingly, the top 10% of earners laid claim to a substantial 69% of the nation's wealth. In stark contrast, the lowest 50% of earners were left with a mere 2.4% of the total wealth. Notably, the USA stands closely behind China in the global billionaire tally, with billionaires like Elon Musk amassing fortunes exceeding $219 billion in 2022. Yet, behind these figures lies a more sobering story. Over the past half-century, the gap between CEO and worker compensation has widened significantly. Some economists even say it's as wide as it was just before the Great Depression. Before we talk about why this inequality is getting wider, let's clear up the difference between wealth and income because people often mix up these terms. Income is a salary or paycheck you get from work. Wealth, on the other hand, is the big picture. It's an investment that increases in value over a period of time. Unlike income, wealth isn't a roller coaster. It's a measure of your long-term financial health and security. And most importantly, wealth can stick around for generations. When one generation accumulates significant wealth, whether through successful business ventures, property investments, or inheritance, it can be passed down to subsequent generations, creating a perpetuating cycle of advantage. According to different studies, the probability of someone born into a low-income family moving to a higher income bracket over the course of their lifetime is very low. This shows how those wealth gaps can have a lasting impact on future generations. But what are the factors that contribute to inequality? Well, one big factor is how assets like real estate and stocks tend to benefit the wealthy, making the wealth gap even wider. To give you an example, during the 2008 financial crisis, while the average American's net worth dropped 40%, the wealthiest 1% saw a 31% increase in their wealth. But it's not just asset appreciation. Financial policies also play a huge role. Things like tax codes, banking regulations, and subsidies often favor the top 1%, letting them pay a lower effective tax rate than the middle class. This just makes the gap even worse. And speaking of wealth, a lot of it gets passed down through generations. In fact, around 70% of the wealth held by the top 1% of families is inherited. So if your great-great-grandparents were wealthy, you're more likely to be wealthy too. This pattern can effectively perpetuate privilege. Moreover, automation and AI are like the new kids on the block, causing some waves. In the 21st century, technological advancements have drastically transformed the American job market. A report by McKinsey says by 2030, about 73 million jobs in the U.S. could be on shaky ground because of these fancy technologies. And it's not just the people in blue or white collars, it's affecting everyone. No doubt, automation boosts efficiency, but it also raises concerns about job availability and wages. Research from the National Bureau of Economic Research suggests that for every extra robot in a group of 1,000 workers, wages might drop by up to 0.42%. Not great, right? This trend intensifies income inequality, with high-skilled tech jobs in high demand, while low- and middle-income jobs become increasingly vulnerable. If not handled fairly, this technological disruption could further widen America's substantial wealth gap. Wealth inequality in America is not just a matter of dollars and cents. It's a pervasive force that significantly impedes social mobility. As the gap between the wealthiest and the rest of the population continues to widen, the American dream of upward mobility becomes increasingly elusive for many. Children born into affluent families have access to superior education, better health care, and a network of influential connections, what some refer to as the birth lottery. These advantages, often taken for granted, pave a smoother path toward success. In contrast, those born into poverty face numerous obstacles, from underfunded schools to limited access to quality health care, which hinder their ability to climb the socioeconomic ladder. The statistics paint a bleak picture. Children from low-income quintile have just a 7.8% chance of reaching the top income quintile, while those born into the top quintile have a 42.9% chance of staying there, according to research by the Pew Charitable Trusts. It creates a system where those born into disadvantageous circumstances face an uphill battle to improve their lives. Now, despite all the talk in politics, the gender and racial wage gaps are still very much a thing in America. Across the country, men tend to earn more than women. Take Vermont, for example, with the smallest gap, and then Utah, where it's a bit wider. Even in jobs where women outnumber men, they're still not out-earning them. In 2019, women were making 20.3% less than men, and by 2022, that gap had grown to 22.2%. When you add race to the equation, it gets even worse. Women of all ethnic backgrounds continue to face wage disparities compared to men, with ethnic minority women earning an average of $718 per week in contrast to the $1,160 weekly earnings of other individuals. Now, let's shift gears to ethnic minority households in 2021. Their median income was $48,297, quite a bit less than the $77,999 that white households were raking in. Ethnic minorities in general had a tougher time with higher unemployment rates. They faced an 8.6% unemployment rate in 2021. This doesn't just affect their wallets. It makes it harder to build up those safety nets like retirement funds and health insurance. Tough situation, no doubt. Are you wondering if policymakers are fulfilling their responsibilities? Certainly yes. They are actively working to address wealth inequality through a range of strategies. Some of these proposed solutions include adjusting income taxes for higher earners, raising the minimum wage, and expanding access to education. In March 2022, President Biden introduced a proposal for a billionaire minimum income tax as part of his annual budget request. This measure would require households with a net worth exceeding $100 million to pay a minimum of 20% of their income in taxes, including unrealized gains. However, there are concerns among critics about its potential impact on the economy, the challenges of implementation, and questions about its constitutionality. Additionally, Biden has suggested increasing the estate tax and raising tax rates for corporations, top earners, and capital gains. Regarding the issue of college affordability and access, some policymakers advocate for tuition-free public college and the elimination of student loan debt. Regarding the ethnic minority employment gap, recommendations include making job postings more accessible to the public, using algorithms for better job matching, and encouraging increased recruitment of minorities, particularly by Silicon Valley companies, following Howard University's advice. So here's the deal about wealth inequality in America. It's going up, but guess what? Grassroots activism is also on the rise, and it's making a real impact. One great example of grassroots action is Fight for $15. This all started with fast food workers going on strike back in 2012, and they've been a driving force behind the push for a higher minimum wage. By 2021, nearly 30 states and D.C. had higher minimum wages than the federal level. Then there are groups like the Economic Policy Institute, EPI. They're working to make the economic landscape fairer. Now, there's a new idea gaining traction called Universal Basic Income, UBI. Folks like Andrew Yang are big supporters. UBI is basically giving regular, no-strings-attached payments to every American. It's a way to tackle wealth inequality head-on and provide financial security to those with lower incomes. And let's not forget local initiatives like Community Land Trust in places like Boston. These trusts let communities collectively own and manage land, making housing more affordable for low-income families as neighborhoods change. So all in all, these efforts are bringing hope for a more fair and inclusive economic future in America. And what about our responsibility? Well, the stark reality of wealth inequality in America demands our collective attention and action. One of the most powerful moves to tackle wealth inequality is to educate yourself and others about investing. Learning how to invest in stocks, bonds, and other assets that can grow over time is the key. It's not just about securing your financial future. It's also about narrowing the wealth gap. You don't need a ton of money to start. Even small, regular contributions can add up. Take courses, read books on investing, seek advice from financial experts, and gradually build your investment portfolio. When we only spend and don't invest, wealth inequality sticks around. Embrace the power of investing to make a real difference and create an equitable society for all. Wealth inequality may be a formidable challenge, but together we have the power to overcome wealth inequality and create a brighter future. So, are you ready to play your part? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. See you in the next video. Until then, stay tuned.